Armored Warriors, a game I didn't stumble upon until I began sailing the high seas in my everlasting quest to experience all the games I never got to play from my childhood, as well as all the fantastic cabinet games that could not be found in my region at the time. Oh yeah, an era from long ago. It was a time before time mattered. A time when you could walk into an arcade that smelled faintly of stale popcorn and cigarettes while being bombarded by vibrant flashing lights and the loud clings, clangs, and crashes coming from the labyrinth of arcade cabinets that would almost seem to envelop you as they stood towering above you in every direction. And as your senses became dulled, so did your reluctance to spend all of your money, and you would soon find yourself pouring quarters into the nearest cabinet that caught your eye. And back in 1994, there was certainly no shortage of powerful arcade cabinets available and ready to be played. Games such as Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat, and games like Final Fight and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles seemed to dominate every arcade. But unlike those games, Armored Warriors is a rare gem that few were lucky to play at the time, and even luckier if they got to play in the multiplayer mode. This game not only surprised me with solid gameplay and stunning visuals, but it did something that not many games can do even in today's gaming market, and that is, it left me wanting more, and also wondering why that never happened. So, in today's video, we'll take a closer look and find out why. We'll look at the story, the characters, as well as the gameplay mechanics and overall experience, all to answer the question, is Armored Warriors still worth playing today? So ladies and gents, grab a stiff drink and let's grind some gears. Armored Warriors, known in Japan as Powered Gear Strategic Variant Armor, is a 1994 beat-em-up video game developed and published by Capcom. It was eventually included with the Retro-Bit Super Retrocade dedicated console and would later be released as part of the Capcom Beat-em-up bundle in 2018. And it's currently available on Steam, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. It was also released on Capcom Arcade Stadium for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Steam in May of 2021. One interesting fact, the variant armors mechs featured in the game would go on to be used in the head-to-head fighting game known as Cyberbots Full Metal Madness, which released only a year after the Armored Warriors first debuted in arcades. But unlike Armored Warriors, this game received a limited international release and even received ports to the Sega Saturn and PlayStation in Japan of 1997. As for Armored Warriors, the story overall is rather loose, but basically it's the year 2281. And the United Earth government and a faction called the Principalities of Raia have signed a ceasefire treaty. This treaty was intended to end a war that lasted half a century. But peace was short-lived and did not last, because a year after the truce, a Raian capital was captured by an unknown army. This unknown army was actually led by the former Raian army captain who has converted himself into a cyborg in an attempt to become the perfect warrior. Raia had marshaled several thousand other cyborgs and declared war against the Raian Principality. Robbing mobile weapons from the army, this group of rogues invaded the Raian capital and began to abduct the citizens and convert them into cyborg soldiers. After the United Earth government received an emergency message from Raia, they decided to dispatch their advanced mech units in an effort to retake the capital and rescue its citizens. However, unknown to the public, the true purpose of this mission was to bring the capital under Earth's control once Azrael's army was defeated. Among the enlisted army is the Red Shield Unit, an elite squadron containing 4 variable armor pilots, each pilot having their own mech and ready to battle. And so, with the army ready, the United World Forces began to launch an attack upon the planet Raia, starting the most intense battle in their history. As from there, you're now thrust into your mission, and with no time to waste, you now begin your endless onslaught of mech annihilation. I think a big part of the story is told from the characters, so playing through is the best way to experience any actual story, but in truth, it's pretty easy to hit any of the buttons which will fast forward the text and the cutscenes to the next part. It's almost like the game's story is secondary to what they wanted to give you, which is a solid gameplay experience, and in that sense, I do believe they achieved their goal. And in many ways, the game also has a big Armored Core feel to it. This is a game with a long-standing series. Armored Core was first released in 1997, with its most recent version, Armored Core 6 Fires at Rubicon, released in 2023. It's easy to see parallels between the two games, and with its release coming just a few years after the success of Armored Warriors and Cyberbots, it's even easier to see how even a few years can give another game time to jump in and take the reign. But as for Armored Core and its gameplay, it mostly follows the mission-like structure of classic arcade games from the time. The game has 7 levels, with each stage consisting of various prerequisites such as giving you a time limit to eliminate enemies, or a set amount of ammo and a task of destroying a certain amount of enemies. One of my favorite level design choices was being the few times you're given unlimited ammo and told to blast your way to victory. These slight change-ups in gameplay really add value and keep the pacing of the game moving in a fun and engaging way. And of course, each level ends with a boss character, which aesthetically cannot be discounted. From plowing over tiny soldiers to facing off against underwater octopus mechs and everything in between, wondering what type of mech boss will be waiting to destroy you at the end of each stage. And that takes us to another important part of the game, which is the outstanding character design that Armored Warriors brings to us. Because what makes the game truly unique is the mechs themselves. These mechs are technically called variant armor, and these variant armors are based on powered exoskeletons, which create an MSW, or a man silhouette weapon. This endows its user with high destructive firepower and turns anyone using a VA into a one-man army. It's also called variant armor due to its variable form, and because of its ability to expand the range of its operations by incorporating different parts, which we'll get to in just a moment. Keeping with characters in the game, you're given 4 characters to choose from, with each character having their own unique mech to pilot. First up, we have Jeff Perkins, aka Rash, who belonged to the 32nd Ground Squadron stationed at Campella Base in the Southern Hemisphere as part of the United Solar System Space Force. Rash is the pilot of a middle-class Type A VA that is equally matched in all areas of combat. His mech stands at 15 feet high and weighs about 2,000 pounds. He's the perfect example of a reckless warrior. He's hot-headed, eager for action, and always taking front position during raids on enemy strongholds. He's also a gifted pilot, but lacks the actual battle experience needed to become great. 3 days after the conclusion of the war, he was told the true purpose of the mission from his unit leader. Feeling great anger and resentment at the forcible invasion of Raia, he made a break and never returned. After the conclusion of the game, he's now known to race stock cars in Los Angeles. Rash comes in as possibly the most balanced player and is probably best for players new to the game. Next up, we have Ray Turner, aka Justice, who is the pilot of a light class Type VA with high speed and range, but low attack power. His VA comes in standing at 16 feet and weighs about 1,400 pounds. Also, his health is noticeably less than Rash, so although he's quicker, he is prone to taking more damage. Justice is actually a Raian military bureaucrat dispatched to Earth upon the conclusion of the peace treaty with the Raian Principality in 2281. He's an ambassador of eternal peace, and once he was discharged from the army, he moved with his family to the Raian city Coral, where he's now writing a story based on the Raian mission of the United Earth Forces. Next up, we have Glenn Reed, aka Gray, who pilots a heavy class Type VA with high attack power and ammo, but low speed and range. His mech is short and stout, but also one of the most powerful. Gray's a surviving member of the 13th Special Squadron, aka the Gods of Death, the most feared by friendly and enemy forces. Bitter over the loss of most of his subordinates and colleagues during that time, the veteran pilot is known to take an excessively strict attitude towards his own men. After learning that the true purpose of his mission was for the government to invade Raia, he felt guilty and retired from the United Earth Force. He then returned to Earth and became obsessed with gambling, and actually became rich and popular in Las Vegas. Last but not least, we have Sarah White, aka Siren, who pilots a junior class Type VA that has high mobility and average attack range and ammo. And although her mech lacks defense, it has great agility and an ability to avoid damage. In addition, Siren's mech is one of the smallest and lightweight in the game. Siren is the child of a human mother and a Raian father, who grew up in a slum camp. Although spirited and spunky, she occasionally shows tenderness to others, and after she discovered the true purpose of her mission, she refused to participate in any more missions. Eventually, she was discharged from the United Earth Force and returned to Raia, where she spends most of her time as a volunteer. Other notable characters in the game are Commander Gallagher, who you receive your objectives from, There's the Operator, an unnamed girl who briefs the Red Shield unit on the stages. We have Burns, the Red Shield unit mechanic. We also have Azrael, a dictator-like cyborg commander and the main villain of the game, who's encountered on 3 separate times in battle. And last, we have Mother Brain, the leader of the enemy forces and the game's final boss. But before we move on to that, let's talk about one of Armored Warrior's most prominent and most fun features, and that's its ability to change up parts of your mech with a large array of different parts for varied attacks. You can change up things like arms, legs, and your handheld weaponry. You can also gain or lose parts by inflicting damage upon enemies. When you do this, it causes various parts to break off, and you can pick them up and use them as your own. Additionally, you can further vary the customization of weapons by using a main and sub-weapon as you play. As for the part selection, there's so many, so I'm going to just talk about a few that I found interesting in the game. One of my favorite weapons was the laser blade, which is a powerful energy blade that cuts enemies in half at high speed, but it does have a short range. Also, I liked using the treads, which is basically caterpillar treads that can change to attack with spikes or a drill. It's basically like you have tank legs. There's also turbojets that allow your VA to move faster and even glide, and the power bug, which gives you 4 insect-like legs that can do high jumps. You also have sub-weapons that you can pick up, like a guided missile that fires 2 missiles that follow enemies around, or a laser that can hit multiple targets at once. Or maybe you want a flamethrower. Or how about napalm, which is a wide-range incendiary projectile that causes heavy damage everywhere. Just having these choices alone adds incredible customization options that most games from the time or even today won't give you. And even though playing in single-player mode, adding parts to your mech as you go is already fun, arguably one of the most impressive aspects of the game is its multiplayer option. As additionally, when inputting the right command combination at the same time, players can use an option called a team-up change, which allows you to combine both mechs, Power Ranger style, and use a powerful screen-clearing attack. Unfortunately, I don't have friends to play with, so I have to play solo, but it's still a blast. One day though. And keeping with our character theme, we can't forget our game's antagonists, as there are quite a few you must battle your way through, with many having their own accessible parts that you can add to your mech. Hence your upgrade options that you pick up along the way. And even the bosses are unique in their own way. And while they can be a challenge, the patterns are manageable and easy enough to get the hang of without feeling overwhelmed. Unfortunately, you can't gain parts from these characters, although that would have been a cool addition to the gameplay mechanic. I kinda like the idea of taking the boss's weapon at the end of the stage, and I think it would have worked especially well in a game like this. But each boss was well thought out and offered a different gameplay experience, which kept the game from being repetitive. The first boss you face is a black VA named Warlock, piloted by Azrael, that's equipped with jets, and it gives it high mobility and the ability to fly as well. It attacks with wrist-mounted machine guns and is fairly easy for the boss's first stage. But you will fight this boss multiple times throughout the game, with its difficulty increasing with each encounter. The next boss you fight is a VA designed for underwater use that resembles an octopus. It attacks with its tentacles, torpedoes, and aquatic mines that track the player. It also fires lasers from its tentacles and can be a bit of a challenge if you don't know what to expect. Part of its pattern is using a vacuum device to try to pull the player toward it. And the more damage it takes, the more tentacles it loses until it's defeated. This was also one of the designs used for the Super 8 mech from Cyberbots. Our third boss is a large blue VA resembling a tank. It attacks with a massive cannon, homing missiles, and a jumping stomp. This boss is fairly easy and should pose no issue if you're properly equipped. Our fourth boss is a scorpion-like VA that attacks with high mobility and rapid piercing strikes with its front legs. It can also discharge electricity, fire a laser beam, and changes color when it takes a certain amount of damage. When it's red, its attack power increases, and when it's blue, its speed increases. This one has an easy pattern to figure out and is best approached with some kind of flying mechanic if you have one. The next boss is a fast VA that can transform into a helicopter. It attacks with 2 types of lasers and with chopping moves. When it's in helicopter form, it also attacks by dropping bombs and diving with spinning arms. Again, while the bosses are fast-paced, the challenge remains minimal and it's actually pretty fun. You end up fighting Azrael again at the end of the game as well as the final boss, but by the game's end and after you finally claim your victory, it's almost bittersweet as war has taken its toll on Raia's cities, and with resources exhausted, Raia has no other choice but to allow the United Earth Force to establish a permanent station on the planet. And with the military balance between the two nations now lost, soon the United Earth Force becomes the real power on Raia, and the remains of the Principality of Raia are left only to be found in its ruins. So what happened? Why didn't we get more? I do believe there are a few reasons, but one of the most obvious for me would be the rise of 3D gaming, as it was during this time that home consoles were starting to enter the market in a big way. Arcades and similar markets were left to survive as cabinets began to gather dust. Customers began staying home and living the dream of having an arcade in their own living room. As consoles like PlayStation and the soon-to-follow Nintendo 64 were just beginning their journey, many other stories would be coming to an end as the inevitable arcade exodus would soon follow. Unfortunately, as a result, many great games that could have become cabinet classics would simply vanish into obscurity to be forgotten or left as relics in history, only to be discussed in OG video game forums and random fan wikis or YouTube videos like this. Armored Warriors, while it may be a great game, appears to be one of those games that got lost in the mix. But does it deserve more glory? Would a remake do any good? And is it still worth playing today? As for a remake, this game would be better left to the archives of gaming history as it's already been made available on multiple consoles at this time. As well, with modern games like Armored Core available, there's really no reason to do more of the same. But is it still worth playing today? Oh, very and definitely. This game is still fantastic and a great solid playthrough. The game mechanics offer a unique take on beat 'em up gaming, and if you have the option of playing with a friend, then the madness ramps up 10 times due to the combo Power Ranger style mech attacks, which are nothing short of hilarious and incredible. At the end of the day, the game is still a classic in my humble opinion, but what do you think? Is the game a classic, or should it be put in the ground and buried like Atari's ET cartridge? Let me know in the comments below, because that's all I got today. If you liked the video, hitting the like button helps a ton. Also, if you missed the last gaming video, I'm going to leave it here for you. And if you just like retro gaming in general, I'll leave this one for you as well. Before I go, I just want to say thanks so much for watching. You're amazing, and I'll see you in the next one.